Hey, welcome to the video. And on this video here, we'll start with some market analysis on some things that have been going on in the market, and then kind of just shift it over to some other general business news and some other information on buying and selling. So, this past week, for the first time since November, home mortgage rates have gone past 7.1%. Um, that's been after about four straight weeks of interest rate decline. So I think when you're looking at that analysis there, what you're really seeing is that relative to the last few years, interest rates are at the highest point of all time. Now, if you're looking at things historically over the last 10, 20, 30 years, interest rates right now are just in line with their historical averages. So there's no real big change historically. This has kind of been the normal trend of where they have. I think in a past podcast online, I've put the exact graphs, but where our interest rates right now fall in line with where they've been historically speaking. However, being that a lot of times, whether people are buying or selling short term, or whether people are just being a little short sighted, um, interest rates, they're a huge point of conversation. They're a huge topic of conversation. And relative to the past few years, they're at an all time high right now. And what does that really mean to buyers? What does it mean to sellers? What kind of impact does that actually have on the market? Um, so this past week, housing payments also hit an all time high record. Um, they've hit a record of 2614. So your average payment right now is $2,600, and that's your average payment. It's your median payment across the U.S. That's an all-time high. So when you say what impact has the highs of the mortgage rates and interest rates done? Well, it's been passed off. It's been passed off to consumers in the forms of cost. And what I found astonishing and astounding from these data points is when you look at this graph that I post up right here. At this time last year, in 2022, your average payment was right around 2250. Now, if you go back to 2021, at this time in 2021, your average payment was right around 1600. And then if you go back to 2020, your average home payment was under $1,500. You were right around $1,400. So when you take a look at, obviously, mortgage rates and interest rates aren't the only factor to driving prices up higher on people's average payment, but they're a huge factor. And what I find astonishing about that is just that just a few years ago, the average payment in the US was right around $1,400. You think about that for any mother, father, or family member, friend that you have out there, maybe it's yourself that's out there. If you were out buying a home just a few years ago, your average payment was $1,400. Today, it's $2,614. That's a really fast rise in how much it costs to go out and buy a home. Later on in this video, get into some different tips and techniques you can go into when buying and selling, some different mindsets you can go into that'll help you out with that. But again, that's the cost that's been passed on to buyers right now. That's something that I found to be pretty stunning. And if you look at where our home price is right now, a little bit more analysis, your median home sales price, as reported by Redfin.com, is $408,000 as your median U.S. national average, which is down 4.1% year over year. Not really a huge decrease year over year, just down 4%. But let's take a look at this right now. This is something that I also found pretty interesting. Potential sellers are not selling. New home listings are down 24% year over year. And that's mainly because a lot of potential home sellers are holding on to their homes because of the low interest rates that they have. The lower interest rates that they've got over the past couple of years. If you were somebody that bought a home in the past few years and you had a decent credit score, oftentimes you were getting interest rates in the low twos, in the middle of the threes. and compare that to a 7 or 8 right now that's being offered, you're talking about hundreds of dollars in savings if you were to have gotten a home a few years ago with one of those low interest rates. And when I say hundreds of dollars in savings, I'm talking about on your monthly payment. That's a tremendous amount of cost that you would have saved if you bought a home over the past few years. And that's a big reason why a lot of sellers are not selling right now, because even if they want to sell, they're looking at those low interest rates, and it's causing them to stay on the sideline and not sell that home. Because let's say you are a seller and you do go sell that home right now. Well, you need to have a good plan in what you're about to do. And what I mean by that is maybe you're going to go into an apartment and you're going to save money by renting, by going into an apartment. So you might sell, make a lot of money in the equity that you had in your home, and go move into an apartment and now be paying a comparable payment there. But it's a tough situation for a lot of homeowners to do, because a lot of people don't want to downgrade and go from selling their house, townhome, condo, and moving into an apartment, moving back into an apartment, whatever it might be. If you are looking to sell right now, and let's say you want to get a comparable home to what you're living in, chances are you're going to have to go into a house that's more expensive, or you're going to have to downgrade your house to get a comparable price, or to get a little bit less of a price. So again, that makes it a little bit more difficult for selling. So when you think about the question of why are sellers not selling, one of the reasons is because they don't have a lot of great options if they want to get something comparable in value to what they currently have. So a question that's pretty popular on the internet right now is, then what is it going to take for sellers to start selling? Because you do have new homes coming into the market. Right now, apartments being released to the market is at an all-time high. You also have a lot of new home construction that's still coming onto the market. You just don't have a lot of homeowners putting their homes onto the market. That number has decreased year over year. So what would it take? I mean, you have a potential banking crisis, and these are a lot of theories right here. You have a potential banking crisis that could, well, there has been a banking crisis. We've had 2 or 3 big bank failures over the past couple months. However, it didn't have tremendous impacts on the market, because whether it was JP Morgan coming to bail them out, or the government coming in to bail them out, there was some protections there. But if the banking crisis continued to move forward and we had more bank failures, that's something right there that could cause sellers to come on the market. Also, other things that could impact the market is we've had a lot of job layoffs this year, specifically in the tech sector. However, when you do take a look at the unemployment rate, even with all those companies like Amazon, Microsoft, Google releasing thousands of people, releasing thousands of pretty high-paying jobs as well too. Even with that going on, our unemployment rate still has stayed right at 3.4%. So even with all those job releases, it hasn't had a big impact on the job market, still sitting at 3.4%. But if these Fed interest rate hikes were really to cause the struggle with companies, as a lot of people think they might, then what you could possibly see is more layoffs and continued layoffs. And if that really caused the unemployment rate to rise and go up, now a lot of sellers would be forced to sell their homes, which would dump more inventory on the market, which would bring prices down. So that's another potential thing that's out there. You got the debt ceiling crisis. It always seems to be more threats between both parties than an actual government shutdown or default. So I think that'll kind of blow over. You got to keep your eyes on the stock market. We do have an inverted yield curve, and based off of a lot of things that CNBC analysts say, Fox News analysts say, is anytime you have an inverted yield curve, usually a recession of sorts follows. So we do have an inverted yield curve right now, which just means that your short-term bonds are worth more in interest rate yields than your long-term bonds. So we'll see what that brings up. So ultimately, if you're looking to get more houses onto the market and you want to see sellers sell, those are some different scenarios that could impact that right there. But those are all just scenarios that could arrive, that nothing that's actually happened just yet. So some other things that I think are important to keep your eyes on is, I've recently read this, that Redfin reported that 2 in 5 home sellers are now offering concessions to buyers, which is double what they were doing this time last year. So showing a little bit more seller willingness to negotiate with buyers. So I'm going to wrap up the podcast on my market analysis and potential things that could cause more homes to come on the market right here. Some general buying and selling strategies I would recommend. If you're a buyer that's coming onto the market right now and you're looking to buy a home, you want to be patient. You want to make sure whatever it is that you're looking for, you're going to be happy with, that it's going to be something that you're going to get long-term value out of. Because if you were to buy a home right now and you think that the market's going to correct at some point in the future, well, if you are buying a home that you really liked and you're going to hold on to it long-term, generally markets increase in value long-term. So that would really help you alleviate a degree of worry right there. If you're a seller and looking to sell your home on the market right now and you have a lot of equity in it, you're in a good position because you're going to make a good amount of money on your home, which a lot of sellers are doing right now because market values have gone up so much over the past couple of years. But if you're a seller and you're looking to do that, what I would recommend is that you make sure you have a good plan for yourself in regards to what it is you plan to do after you sell that home. How are you going to get yourself a new home? Are you going to choose to rent right now? Sometimes renting is actually a better option than buying. So those are two different things that you can consider if you're a buyer or a seller. But ultimately, you want to be patient in your decision. You want to think through your decision and you want to consult with industry experts, people that actually know and understand what they're doing because they have years of experience in helping clients with those decisions right there. Because you never want to rush or be pressured into a situation, because if that's the scenario, if that's the case, then you could be rushed into making a bad decision. Where if you take a more long-term approach, you think about your decision, you assess it and analyze it, you give yourself a better chance of making the correct decision. So thanks for tuning in and look forward to talking to you all soon.